Well, let's tell you a good tale. It'll be about a fortnight since I made a quick video about a clip that had been put out by Paul Joseph Watson. And it was like a 10 or 12 second long clip, but in it he manages in this one sentence to like offend everyone but the Chinese. And there's no context to it, and it does appear like he's just trying his best to be a dick to dismiss somebody. But without the context, it's meaningless, it's nothing. But somebody out there thought it was something. Somebody out there thought it was real. So that's why I actually spread it and put it out again. I mean, it didn't go very far from where I spread it out. But the point I make is, looks like there's blood in the water for this guy. Somebody's taken an interest. Someone's trying to set things going. I was right in saying that the blood's in the water because I know that the blood is in the water for him and others. And we know this, don't we, because of the way that the left operates around people who are, you know, these right-wing types or these alt-right types. It's like they've decided that they're fucking Nazis. And there's a big gang of people who feel completely justified, you hope not hates and the like, of just running roughshod over people, making all kinds of accusations and smears, and it appears that they're above criticism. You can't go back on them. So I know that these people are around, even though that I think that the alt-right thing, they never let me join, strictly, and there's reasons why they never let me join, and the reasons why they'll never let me join is I would debunk all the fucking central planks of the movement. What? It's like, yes, none of them guys are interested in ever having a conversation about the grooming thing, a real one. They have to go with the narrative they've got, and it's like, that narrative was fed to you by, like, the Ramadan Foundation. So really, it's like this narrative that you're running with was provided you by Rochdale Council. Excuse me? Yes, the narrative that you run with, the thing that you try to use to create outrage, is to say these darn Muslims are up to no good. It's a limited hangout and a lie that came from Rochdale Council. That the Rochdale Council lie about everything, but you have to, for some reason, people on the right have believed Rochdale Council with its story about the 3 girls, etc. Has taken their word for something when no one should ever take their word for anything, because damn it, you know, the body's buried in this town by way of, you know, institutional sexual abuse. It's like you get to talking to the older people around here and they'll tell you tales. You know, it was I had a German journalist come over and interview me. It's a few years ago now, it's like after Brexit. And he wanted to, this guy was interviewing me, but he was also interviewing Extinction Rebellion's Mark Coleman. So he went to see Extinction Rebellion's Mark Coleman first, and then he came and interviewed me. After he'd interviewed me, he abandoned his project. The documentary he was making didn't get made, and it's like, why? And it's because I sent him away with a word of truth in his ear, and it wasn't just from me. I met him in quite a nice old pub a couple of miles up the road, and I didn't have to tell him all that much about what this town is, because the other locals in the pub overheard what we were saying, or overheard the interview. And there's a chap who come along and he says, I've always lived around here, I've always lived in this neighbourhood. It's like, what have we got up here? Couple of special schools, controversial special schools. And he says, I see people who used to go to those schools now walking around Rochdale. And he says, they're like zombies. He says, you can't tell me there's not things gone on, like evil things, like things that people to this day would die to keep secret. So, stranger, guy in the pub was saying, and it's like, anyone with the wits about them in this town, you can talk to them and they know something. They know something. But it's like, you guys who don't know Rochdale, you're not interested in, or rather in places like this, northern towns. It's like, you don't understand these places. You've fucking never been here. You've never took the trouble to speak to anyone because you've decided what the story is that best suits your grifting ends. And that is the Pakistani rape gang conspiracy theory. And there's a truth to it. There's a truth. It's true. The story you're telling is true, but it's a matter of, but it's a limited hangout. What? It's like, yeah. It's like, if you want to look for those same patterns of behaviour amongst people of Irish descent, you'll find it if you look. If you want to see those kinds of patterns of behaviour amongst people who've got like traveller backgrounds, gypsies, you will find it. If you want to look at like shady foreign types, Albanians and Russians and Poles, who in essence flit from country to country working, if you want to see that pattern of behaviour amongst those people, you only have to go and look for it. If you want to find that pattern of behaviour amongst sort of white working class men in a town like Rochdale, you will find it. In every circle, in every situation, you're pointing to the same thing, and that is, there's a situation in this town where once it was broken, but it appears that the old internet and the, let's say, the new crop or the new breed of people who are vulnerable to that kind of manipulation have kind of come together, and it's an apocalypse. Now, this thing that they brought to the public attention from 10 years ago and more, they would have you believe that it just suddenly stops happening. And it hasn't. They just don't talk about it anymore. And to talk about it is seen as passé. But in the first instance, the way it was uncovered was racist. Excuse me? Yes, it's like, who spilled the beans, right? Oh, she's now like one of the leaders of Rochdale Council. She got a full promotion for that. Because she whipped up the boogeyman forces of the alt-right, so they could then be used to frighten the local Islamic population into voting Labour. Excuse me? Yeah. It's like, what a job. What a job, the alt-right of it. Your Woes, your Tommy Robinson, a lot of them, they all fall into this. They all fall for it. What a job they've done for the left. And every time they start to mouth off about a problem that's unsolvable within the realms of our political criminal justice system and use it for political points, it's like you're hiding behind imaginary abused children that you don't care about and you don't know, right, for political point scoring. And if you knew the truth, you'd come to realise that there are no political points to be scored here. So someone like me comes along and tells me a word of truth about what's really going on. And they're like, oh crap, I've been wrong from the very start, haven't I? But it's too late for me to go back now. I can't go and sing a different sheet from the... I can't sing a different song from the hymn sheet now. I'm past the point of no return. And then you get things happen like Tommy Robinson running for like election into like the European Parliament in the Northwest, thinking, oh, well, there's loads of people there who are up in arms about all this terrible grooming that's going on. He doesn't live round here. He doesn't come from round here. So what happens is he comes round here campaigning, and they start throwing the old, you know, concrete milkshakes at him. And the general mood towards him is, get the fuck out of this town. And it's like, why? It's like, because you're doing a job for the Labour Party. What? Yeah. It's like most sort of Muslim Asian people who vote, it's like naturally They're actually moral conservatives. But they vote Labour because they get paid off, they kind of get bribed, they get made all kinds of promises. But fear of the far right is what they sell them. That's why they vote Labour. Fear of the far right. If they can drum up fear of the far right, they can get what is, naturally a conservative block of votes, all to vote Labour. And then the worst of them, social justice warrior types, push their way to the front, get elected, and then everything's racist, sexist, and homophobic. So it's like right-wing agitators turning up in this town. They do not help this town. They guarantee Labour local election victories. And I've come to these guys on the right and told them this and said, look, do you want to drop this, or even do you want to drop the full story of it? But if you want to drop the full story of it, you have to face up to the fact that through our education system, so basically our councils make matters worse. Our education systems is sort of geared towards creating a more peaceful human, and they don't know what that means. So to them, that means promiscuous, gay, free love. As to where you've got kids of 15 and 16 who bully and peer pressure each other based on, you're a virgin, aren't you? Oh, nobody wants you. And then it'd be a matter of these miserable kids all put themselves together, end up in relationships and messed up with people they don't like even, because they can't be seen to not be wanted. And you see this play out and it's like, this is nuts. When did I pick up on it first, this kind of culture? 10 years ago. Okay, these people who are involved in this culture, how old are they now? 26, 27, 28. Really? Yeah. Wouldn't it be funny if they turned up as lawyers? Wouldn't it be funny if they turned up as activists? Wouldn't it be funny if they turned up as managers in local government? It's like your gender study degree doesn't get you very far, or your communications and media degree doesn't get you very far, but it'll get you a job at the council. It'll get you a job working for the government. So it's like, we'd have to face up to the fact, right, that those tasked with ostensibly looking after people, the council and the like, the NHS, the care system, isn't fit for purpose, is a selective judgment, a selective measure. Most of the kids that are abused in this town never even get anywhere near the council. And the ones that do, they get re-victimised endlessly, brainwashed, turned into left-wing political fanatics and fuck rotten. It's like, I put it to you in a YouTube video, it's like, our problems in this country are far worse than that. That was a limited hangout that was politically expedient in giving the right, because they need the right. They need that ridiculous reactionary alt-right so they can point to them and say, look, they're growing, look at the numbers, look at the subscribers they've got, look at how many views they're getting, look at how many people are listening to this guy. It's like the absolute essence of cheap, controlled opposition. The magic word, cheap, controlled opposition. It's like you could spend a load of money creating some kind of think tank with names and faces that puts out studies and gives them to the press and implants talking points and stories. But that's expensive. You buy yourself a few YouTubers, you can do the same job. Excuse me? Yes, buy yourself a few YouTubers. How much does it cost to get next to a YouTuber, regardless of size? Say someone the size of Woes, someone who's got like 100,000 subs or around that. How much would it cost you in money to get next to that person to fill his ear with your fucking nonsense? 1,000? If anyone had just, all you need actually to get into to influence these people, all you need to do is to give them money. So that barrier of someone, it's like, if I'd have been wanting to talk to, say I wanted to get into a few of these right-wing guys and say, look, you really need to drop this story, or you need to rethink it, and in working out what it really is, you find you've got a bigger fight on your hands, and in 6 months' time, you will be James Lindsay. Like, what? You say, yes, you'll be James Lindsay. He's the only one who really takes it seriously, I reckon, other than my good self. What? It's like, It's like our education systems aren't fit for purpose anymore. I live in Ground Zero, a place that's like renowned for all kinds of shenanigans that go on. And it's like, do you not think I hadn't noticed a few of them? And do you not think I haven't noticed that it's been going on for as long as I've been here? And the MO of the creep, of the sexual predator, it's always the same MO as it's always been. And it's like, once you understand, they stick out like a sore thumb. And it's a matter of, yeah, these guys are like magpies. They just always flock to the easiest chance to get to kids. And it's like, yeah, I kind of know that. It's like, why? So, well, they managed to get to me when I was at primary school, at school. So it's like, wonder how many other people this happened to. You have a few discreet words, have a few discreet chats here and there with people your age you went to school with. And you ask them, did you get molested when we were all at St Patrick's School, Rochdale together, Catholic school? Did you get molested while you were there off a teacher or a visit at the school? And they all say, yep. And you're like, what? And you're like, yeah. You're like, it's been a long time since we've spoken of it, but yes. He's like, yes, I sure did. Go out, speak to people, say old schoolmates of mine who are, you know, not, it's tough. But if you go through that, you know what I mean? If you go through life like that, it's difficult to surprise people like that. They've seen it. They've seen it going on, they've witnessed it, they've lived a generation of it working its way through the system in their own lifetimes, they get it. You ask them and it's like, I think every kid in that school we went to got systematically sexually abused as kids. You're like, what? And it's like, yeah, everybody. And it's like, remember them slowies they used to send us, where every class there'd be a kid who was like retarded. We'd now call them retarded. We used to say they were slow. It used to actually be the political correct term to refer to the slowies. So every class had a few slowies in it. And it's like, have you worked out yet where they came from? What they were? So, yeah. They've been abused. And instead of doing what they did later and separating them out and putting them into separate schools so they could have them all in one place, so all the fucking creeps could just descend on them all the time because they're the most vulnerable, they used to put them in our schools, and them being in our schools used to attract all kinds of fucking creeps and pedos into straight people's kids and not these waifs that aren't protected by anyone. So then they start getting a roving eye for proper kids. And what, John? It's like, yeah, pedos, big problem. Big problem. And it's like, funny old thing about it though. To get to the bottom of it, it's like adults have to tell you about it, but they have to be adults who remember what it was to be children. And there ain't many of them. What? Well, yeah, they don't grow up. People don't grow up anymore. They stay trapped in childhood. They don't remember what it was to be a child, and that's why they're so weak at defending children. They don't remember what it was to be that way vulnerable. It's just a distant memory. It's just part of their character. They suffer the repercussions of it to this day, but it's not something that's on their mind as to, do you know where it's died? It's like you got a crime that, by and large, covers up its own footprints. because you get it as to where. Do you know how old I was when I remembered what had happened to me when I was a kid? I remembered things that had happened to me when I was 7, when I was 27. I dreamed of it. Woke up in the middle of the night. What? I knew it was real. So I had a pad and a paper in my bedroom, and I reached for it and I wrote down a note to myself and then read it in the morning, and it's like, yeah, you know now, don't you? You get it. You remember what happened to you. And this coming to remember 20 years later, that's the thing. It's like you hear all these historical case of sexual abuse, the Savile thing, right? Most of them didn't even remember it had happened to them until it was directly addressed, and then it all came flooding back. It's like there's something to this pimping magic. That's why it's so dangerous. That's why in a healthy society, when it starts to show itself, it is stamped down upon. Now, the thing is, we can use the word paedophile. 25 years ago, saying it might have got you in trouble. Just saying that word might have got you in trouble. Throwing it out as a accusation, or even an insult or a slur, would have got you in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. You'd find yourself in murderous trouble, even if the person you're calling out was a paedophile. Because the reason they get away with it is because no one would believe it true. And they got away with it. They all got caught over and over and over again, but the story got told and no one would believe it true, and they get away with it for years and years and years and years. Why? Because no one would believe it true. He's such a nice fella. They don't want to live in a world where that might be true, so they refuse to believe it. And then these guys go on and on and on. And it'd be like, oh, this is something new and separate. This is some kind of trick that's been brought over from the Far East or something like that, or from the Middle East. This is Pakistani gangs have come along and they've started no. It's like there's a thing that goes on, has gone on a lot longer than things like that in Rochdale. Although that has always been a thing. There's always been waifs and strays on the street in Rochdale, always. I don't drive anymore, but once upon a time when I used to drive for a living, I used to always be driving around in a car, and sometimes I'd be driving around late at night. Sometimes I had a day where I'd been all over the country and I was coming home at 10 o'clock at night, and you would drive around Rochdale and you would see kids too young to be out at 10 and 11 o'clock at night, standing around wanting to be picked up by anyone who will give them attention. And it'd be like, oh my God. And it'd be, you know, the police and the council, they pretend not to see this. But those guys who drive around in cars who like prostitutes, they see them. Yeah, it took for someone to show me something one day that was fucked up for me to accept it about Rochdale. And it was someone who used to work with, he was from Manchester. He was from South Manchester. And he had issues with boundaries, and he had issues with all kinds of things. It was like he was a guy who was married, and it's one of them. He was someone who being married was the only thing he could be, because if he couldn't handle himself at all. He had to be accountable to his wife, or he was a dickhead. And it's like the reason he wasn't in jail, having got himself in with a bad crowd and in a load of trouble, was his wife. And the reason why he's still, you know, doing all right for himself in the real world is because his wife looks out for him. He can get in real trouble with his missus and it matters to him. Right? But he gets it. He's been in the military, this fella. He's been around the world and he's done some whoring before he got married. And he says, Rochdale is a town full of prostitutes. He just said it. He says they're everywhere. I says, what are you on about? And this is about 8 o'clock at night on like a Wednesday. We've been to like a meeting after work and we were on our way home, driving. And he says, oh mate, they're everywhere. He says, look, I'll show you. And I'm like, what? Woman walking down side of the road. Stopped. You on game, love? And she says, yeah, what are you after? And I'm like, fucking hell. And he says, no, love, you're all right. Be on your way. We're just weighing you up. See you later. And just drives away. And then I'm like, what the fuck? He says, oh, it's worse around here. And then he drives around to around where I used to work, where he used to notice all kinds of that kind of activity. So you couldn't have told me that there weren't loads of prostitutes hanging around those flop houses around Walker Street, Rochdale, Chichester Street. I knew that. I used to work around there, and it was like the daily horror show of heroin addicts going at each other. I mean, that neighbourhood's got its own little gypsy camp. So it's like all kinds of things are changing hands for money in that little sector of the town. And he goes to driving around there. And we stopped, right? And there was this girl who was certainly on the game. She was all dressed up and she brought a big bag with her. Big bag with a change of clothes in and all kinds of different stuff. And stopped. And I looked at her and I'm like, oh, fuck me. And it's like, ah, shit. And so my mate's like, okay, love, what will you do for 100? And she fucking lays it out like a shopping list, like we're all in business together. 2 weeks before, she'd worked at the same place as us. He hadn't recognised her, but they put her on the same team as me. She'd come working at the same place as us, blagging herself in as some sort of telesales fucking person. And didn't pick up the phone all day, didn't have the bottle too, completely lost a bottle, wouldn't speak to anyone, went home, never came back. Fortnight later, it's like, what will you do for 100 quid? I'm fucking stunned, mate. I'm like, shh. This happens? And then, it's like I'm not a ladies' man, but I know a lot of women. I know loads of women. It's like I recognise that me chasing women is a ridiculousness. It's like, you know, as someone put it to me, talking on the same subject with a friend of mine, and she's like, what do these men want? It's like, you think I'm going to like fall in love with you and then come to your house and sit in front of your telly with you and watch all your shows with you and watch football with you and play PlayStation with you and be nice to your family and go around and meet your mother and father? He says, you think I'm going to fucking do that? Like, are you fucking real? You think that, you know, you can have me as your girlfriend and I'm just going to be someone who just has the same life as you do? Are you for real? So I get that as to where it's a matter. And now, once you've fucking got past about 20, 21, from there, you get set in your ways, man or woman, and you're asking someone to change their life entirely just for the sake of some dick. So you understand it. I get to my age where I'm talking about now, where I've been about 26, 27, 28. And talking to the women, right? Knowing that these women were workmates, and it's like they could tell me stories about things they got up to that'd make me turn white and have a fucking stroke. That's what they were capable of. And they put it to me, it's like, John, he said, push come to shove, right? Once the fucking magic's gone, we're all just whores. What? So yeah, it's like you living in a fucking dream world. You think that there's good women out there. It's like, well, we're good women, and why are we good women? It's like, because we do what we fucking want. And we don't stand in the way of anyone else doing what they want either. And fundamentally, it's like, because I say I'm a single guy who's got like my own house doing okay, and it's like John, you just haven't got enough money to afford either of us, and that's all that's wrong with you. I'm like, what? So yeah, you can afford us. And the back at you, they're like, yeah, well, we work full time. We're not on good wages, but we get paid. It's like, live with parents, don't pay a penny in board, and spend all our wages, and we can spend all our wages on the first weekend after payday, and have no money for the rest of the month, and it just doesn't matter because someone's going to pay for it all. Excuse me? Yeah, whether it be my mum and my dad, whether it be my boyfriends, whether it be whoever I'm seeing, whether it be whoever I'm hanging around with, they'll pay me way for me. I don't really have to worry about running out of money. I'm like, this is real? And they're like, yeah, and you're stupid. You're absolutely stupid. It's like, if you're actually interested, it's like you have to pick up all that monetary slack, right? All the extra that we pick up from being able to earn a bit here and there and get the odd freebie. It's like you have to cover that bill. You have to be thinking about paying my phone bill for me when I'm struggling. You have to be thinking about bailing out my car payments. You have to be thinking about, and then they're like, so I can do what I want. And then I'll be a girlfriend. I'm like, oh, well, so it's a question of just flat out money. It's like, yeah. Because it's like, fundamentally, these were the sort of women who pretty much go with anyone. Like, everyone's got something to them. You know, they teach people to, you can see something in anyone. Well, they do. They're not so fussy. It's like, it's difficult, right, to be working a job that pays you something like, in what would be 2001, 2002, 20 years ago. You're in a job that pays you fucking 12.5 grand a year, and you want, really, to suit your lifestyle, it's best if you've got 2 grams of cocaine. So that 2 grams of cocaine a week you're buying is costing you 80 quid a week. So you've got 80 quid on top of, you basically, before you start, you've got 80 quid to spend. In the way that some people have to count their money by way of, you know, a packet of smokes every day is going to cost me X. Well, they are big bag of cocaine, and that'd be the pressure on the system. And you got that mate, my sister. Oh my God, I don't know how she's ended up. Not a mate, my sister, a friend of mine's sister, who had severe psychological issues and a big drug problem, hand in hand. She used to be suffering from ostensibly stress, but she worked for a firm where if she played the harassment game, if she played the I'm being picked on at work game, she could just always be paid full wages and never have to turn up for work. It's like she got away with like turning up for work a couple of weeks a year for the best part of 5 years. And the way she looked at it is, well, I'm free. I get paid a good wage and I don't work. And if anyone says anything bad about it, I just lay it honest to say I'm struggling with my mental health. And it's like, you're struggling with your mental health. Is it got anything to do with your diet, be, you know, ease and temazepam and weed? Is it got anything to do with it being that's your daily diet, that's what you have to do? Is it not a fucked thing that you cannot sleep without drugs? Is it not a thing? And there came a time when she turned up home in an extremely bad state, right? Drugs. She'd OD'd and she was being uncooperative and she'd OD'd. So she was spewing up and fucking diarrhea in. right? That's what it looks like. When someone has a drug overdose, right? The drug overdose is usually, it's not pretty, but it's mostly shitting and fucking throwing up. Feverish. It's like they glamorise it by saying, oh, you're just going to a coma or fall asleep. No. No. You feel real sick. So she's OD'd, she's off it, and she's ODing, and she's like spewing up, drooling. So, mother and father who have pretended for years that they don't know that she's a fucking wreck, right? Takes her to the hospital. Right? It's like she's been going to her doctors for doctors' notes saying, oh, I'm stressed, for years. And then for the first time ever, she gets observed by an NHS, crisis sort of team psychologist. The NHS crisis team, this is one of the funniest stories ever, so she came out telling us because she thinks she's right clever. Said to her, what's wrong? Oh, I feel terrible. Right? It tells the story of a rough weekend and a bad night. Not years of abuse. Not years of self-abuse. Not years of getting up to all sorts of fuck shit. Doesn't say anything about that. She says that she's struggling to sleep and she's been feeling depressed. And the doctor, or the guy who saw her, right? He said, I think you have to come to the conclusion that what you're actually suffering from is a chemical imbalance, and it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You're the victim here. And gave her a prescription, put her on the Prozac. It's like, I'm going to write a note back to your GP and send the report back, and we're going to see that you get looked after because I think we can probably help you. And so she's telling us this tale, and then she's like all of a sudden got a new script. And when it suits her, because we used to rag the shit out of her for doing stupid things and falling for scams, and remember once, same person, she got herself involved with some fucking gangster idiots, which was her thing. She likes bad boys, you see. She likes bad boys. She got herself involved in some gangster idiots, and she bought into a fucking chain letter. I'm like, so I'm talking to my mate, and she's about 10 years younger, at least, than her brother. And so she's telling us this thing she's done. She's like, right, well, I've paid 100 in, and now if you all pay me 100, it's like, I move further to top up. And you're like, this is a chain letter. And then me and my mate are laughing about, we first heard about chain letters watching Grange Hill but that was where we learned about heroin as well. Watching TV show Grange Hill, that's where we learned about chain letters. And it's like, you're asking us, right, to give you £100 each to join in with your chain letter? And we're like, have you ever heard of a Ponzi scheme? And she's like, I don't know what you mean. And I said to my mate, just to demonstrate how fucking big a scam it was, I says, mate, I says, I've had an idea, right? Let's start our own. You give me 100. And we were just laughing. And she's like, you can't. You can't start your own. You've got to stand. And we're like, who's fucking brainwashed you? It's like someone's took 100 quid off you and ripped you off. And now you're coming, mithering us, and it's somehow our problem. It's like, you've been brainwashed. And it was so funny, trying to get through to this woman that she'd been scammed. It's like hitting a rubber wall with a mallet. And it weren't a fucking big deal. She could never be wrong. And we used to just laugh our asses off. Hilarious, just between us, just falling about laughing at her. And she can't be wrong. And then it'd be, okay, right, okay, bye, see ya. Hey, fun seeing you. And then we'd be like, she's fucking crazy, isn't she? And you're like, yeah. I've got a chemical imbalance. It's not my fault. I've just fucked your best friend. I've got a chemical imbalance. It's not my fault. What a fucking line. And it's like, I'm talking about 20 years ago, people playing these games. I think these games, it's like everyone's learned them, they've proliferated. And it's like, do you know how to best fuck the system? Crack on, you're a victim, and join one of its victim classes. And do you know what else it gives you? A license to bully. What? Yeah, license to bully. Create more victims. More victims validate you. What? Yeah. That's a fucking chain letter, isn't it? Just a pattern, a longhand way of saying that narcissism is malignant. You can learn it, you can catch it, you can be schooled in it by someone else. It's all pervasive and malignant. And been off the radar. So we have to pretend the pattern of behaviour of psychopaths is a mystery and that they are otherwise rational people. And when they do something, it's as if there's no way of knowing that that's what they would have done. So everything's always a surprise. The world's become so accustomed to being tricked by hucksters, right, that they do the huckster's job for them now and trick themselves. Same game, pimping, grooming, whatever. It's the same grifting, con game. It's the same game. And it's like, con men have been able to rewrite the law and made it a great world for con men, make it a brilliant world for con men. But the trick is you have to lie to tap into the system. You have to lie. And in lying, there's your deal done. Soul into sin. Yes, you can do this, but you have to lie to yourself and others always. Nice trade-off. And then you start to read in the diagnosis of these crippling psychological disorders. Cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. That's a really, really eloquent way of saying that someone becomes a lying fantasist. Now, a lying fantasist, then armed with the tools of the words of fucking oppression that are now available in the guise of victimhood, can become unstoppable. And fucking simp guys will throw their lives down in front of them, and institutions will bend a knee for fear of being destroyed by them when they decide to tell your boss some fucking choice things about you. Whether they be true or false, you're done. It's like, I can be guilty. You could be said that I'm guilty of, in my time, asking far too many questions. Wanting to know. Too curious, ask too many questions. You ask too many questions, right? This world we live in can't live with you. It's not a good thing. No one's playing. It's like, no, you ask too many questions. You are a threat. It's like you're far more intelligent than I am, and you're going to use that to bully me, aren't you? And the answer is, if you conceive yourself a victim, yes, I'm going to bully you. If you don't, we'll get on really well. See, if you conceive yourself a victim, yeah, I am going to psychologically bully you because you think you're brilliant when you're not. It's like, and you know why? Do you know the thing is with me? It's like the same trick doesn't work on me. It's like, why? It's like, because I'm quite rational, reasonable. And if I get caught wrong on something, I'm like, oh shit, I've learned something new. I like that. Don't mind it. If I'm factually out, if I've got my facts wrong, I'm more than happy to get my facts right. This is part of why, you know, make videos like this, right? The idea of making videos like this, right, is to get caught wrong. And have people specifically say, hang on a minute, your facts are wrong. Are they? Help. Tell me. Doing this, what is in essence improvisational, in good faith, thinking out loud, right, is communal prayer as to where I'm throwing it out to the congregation. And it's for you to think about it and to question it. And then all of a sudden we're all thinking along the same lines, aren't we? Because talking is thinking out loud. That's why they want to stop people from talking. So they don't learn how to think. And do you know what thinking is? Well, I put it to this, right? In them situations where someone might either throw in with the mouth, or throw in with the fist, or throw in with the guns, or throw in with the knives, you're like this. Thinking. Instead of doing out of passion, emotion, that's thinking. And you learn how to think by, I think, fucking up like that enough as to where when you start to think, when you start to think, I wish I could take back yesterday. Then you're starting to think. It's like there's elements of us left in the past, there's elements of us yet to be discovered in the future, and then there's the present moment. And it's like that creature in the present moment has got the ability to look back and forward. And it's like some people are good at it and some people can't look into the future. People who can't look into the past can't look into the future. It's too frightening. If the past makes you afraid, the future is frightening too. It's like you fucked past dooms your future, but doesn't have to. Although saying that, if you've never in your life developed a sense of fucking humour, it's like you failed anyway. How can life be a joke when nothing's funny to you? Because you take everything literally. You haven't spent enough time around on people to learn subtleties like fucking sarcasm, different tones, different voices, different way of projecting things as to, you know he's only joking when he says that. But you don't know that. Why? Because you haven't spent enough time with enough people and had your leg pulled enough. You ever see that movie, The Death of Stalin? Comedy, where they have everybody speaking in their own natural accents when it's in Russia, because it's like, well, Russia's not just one place, you know, it's like everyone's got their own accent. It's like you're better off having them talking their own accents, their own speaking voices. So there's Jason Isaacs playing, was it that hero general from World War One, Zhukov, and he's been brought in on a coup to take out the KGB guy who wants to replace Stalin. And one of the co-conspirators comes up to him, and the first thing he says is, right, okay, it's like, in view of what I've heard, it pains me, but I'm the man who's going to have to arrest you and charge you for treason and sedition and conspiracy. And would you like to come with me? And as the guy shits his pants, Zhukov's like, your fucking face, laughing. And it's like, that kind of wind-up has been like almost a standard joke for a good half of my life, as to where someone comes along and says, I've got some terrible bad news for you. Like, what? Your house is burnt to the ground. Excuse me? Yeah, it's like your family's dead. And your face. People do that to each other. And you're like, you motherfucker. But it's a matter of, you get a few good years of that and you get around certain people who like to play games like that. It's a matter of, you know it's a joke, you know it's a piss take, and then it becomes then a game of fun as to how imaginative you can be with your fucking lies and your make-believe fun bullshit. This is what jokes are. These are what funny stories are. These are what absurdities are. And it's like, there are those of us who've become quite advanced at this game of fuck with each other, deliberate gaslighting, weaponised psychological and emotional abuse to get a laugh. As to where we can like laugh at how fucked it is. Because it's funny. And it's like, you know, your capacity to take something traumatic and terrible and turn it into something that's funny. Right? You'll never find a better survival mechanism like that, because it shows you've learned. You can share the story and it not be a tragedy, having transmuted it into a fucking lesson, knowledge. And it be, some good came of that, as bad as it was. Why? Because it's now a funny story. It's like, I've spent too long, I've wasted my time with who I've tried to kind of network with or associate myself with and make friends with on this platform. In view of it, is like, are you guys serious about wanting to change the world or what? Well, I am. I'm serious, but I'm on my own. Don't know if anyone else is serious about it. So you want to try and find out who is. And then it take a long time to work it out, and it might come across as, I don't know, find it what you want. It's like, I'm more serious than any of these people who are actually saying, you know, I'm leading them. These people like Walls, who was giving it the movement, leading a movement. It's like, no, you're not. It's like, you couldn't raise an army of 5 people in reality. It's like, you might get a lot of people to turn up for an internet hangout. You might get a lot of people who fucking put a like or share something for yourself, but that ain't no army. It's an army much in the same way as, you know, the LGBTQ is a community. It's like, but that's not really. They're for changing nothing. They're actually pushing what the fucking globalists want. They're a government branch now. So the same rules don't apply to you as them if you're going to go up against them. So it's like, to have had some fucking idiot get in contact with me saying, I'm making a documentary about millennial wars, I'd like to interview you. That's happened recently. It's what this video is kind of about in some ways. And I'm like, this is a blank Facebook account. This is a random name. This is a false fucking person wanting to drill me for info about something. And they're using something else to get the foot in the door. So it's like, I am 99% certain, I know who I was talking to, who spoke to me on a couple of occasions, trying to drill me for information about something that he referred to as Thoughtgate. And I'm like, you call the drama that? The drama of it that? And it'd be a matter of, This guy doesn't know it, but I know the ins and outs of the entire other side of that story. What? It's like, he doesn't know this. But maybe he thinks I might know. And maybe this guy was trying to test me for it. No, it's like, this guy's like a lefty fucking shape-shifting creep, right? Who would literally pretend to be somebody else, use a false identity, and then ask of me, like I'm doing, you know, like to do him a favour and give him the gift of truth. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll play that game with you. Yeah, I'll fucking play. It's like, I'm far too shifty for these, what these people who seem to think that they're sort of smart and clever, these smear merchant fucking pricks out in the world. I'm far too fucking dangerous for them to mess with. It's like they can't handle themselves. People like that, they can perform, they can act, but they can't handle themselves at all. The grifters, they're on the hustle as well. They're playing the same kind of game. It's like, who in the fucking world who you could take seriously for longer than a second would be looking to make a documentary about millennial woes? It's like, that's the most fucking absurd thing. It's a matter of, it's like, oh, is it like a big documentary? Is it small? It's like, yeah. You want to make a documentary about this guy? So I leave that guy for dead, leave him just absolutely fucking confounded, not knowing what to say, and for him then to be dismissive as to where I've had some serious and in good faith long fucking words with that person in the past and told them, as to say, you are grifting. Why? Because your central narrative is a lie. The thing you use as a battering ram out front is a lie. It's something that was given to you and you've all been tricked. You know, by the forces of the spin doctors of Rochdale Council, who were desperate at the time to cover up that there's certain living people who've got a real fucking list of things to answer for. Swallowed the bait, became their agents, didn't know, started to grift, played a fucking left-wing game and called yourself men of the right, conservative men, populist men, people who were out for justice, and it's a matter of, no, you're amateurs who are in a game that's half politics and half grift, and you don't realise that the criminals are better than you. In fact, you don't realise that the fucking salesmen are better at it than you. You don't get it as to where it's like, in the past, part of my trade is to say, what do you know what we need in this marketplace to make more money? What? Less competition. Excuse me? Yeah, it's like, what would be the best way of putting our competition out of business? It's like, we'll be willing to throw some money at it so they lose some. Company I work for destroyed its competition by just giving everybody free carriage in a world where there's no such thing, and ending up with bills of millions of pounds. I mean, it's like, well, we spent 5 million, but we destroyed our competition because we took all the business, because we were willing to ship it all for free, and they couldn't match us. They couldn't cheat like that. We could. We had the size and the backing and the credit to play games like that until our main competition went out of business. And it be I work for firms where the guys have been like director level clever. Like, oh, well, I'm a sales director, I'm a marketing strategist. It's like, well, what do you think we should do? If they lost their government contract, they'd go out of business, excuse me, and that's like hundreds of millions of quid a year that all go to the same place. If we could somehow work it out as to where somehow they lost their government contract, or we found out the ins and outs of it as to when it was up for renewal and who'd we have to lobby and who'd have to pay and what we'd have to make happen for them to say this monopoly they've got over goods and services is something that needs to be broken up. Let's get our lawyers onto it and see if we can't break this closed shop. So they do. And they destroy another business that was that had in its evolution become part of the government. If you remember, what were they called? Computer Centre. Don't exist no more, but they were massive. It's like you'd be watching test match cricket and it's a Computer Centre, Computer Centre, Computer Centre, Computer Centre, Computer Centre. And people in the business used to say, if only you could break up and take their business. And then everybody did. And it's a matter of at the time as to where they could make it look like when things started to computerize, which, you know, it never stops that when they say, we're spending £8 million now updating our IT system. You know, them bills never stop coming. That's like you sign up a subscription forever to everyone. You sign up for life. Do you know why Bill Gates is so rich? Right? Bill Gates is so rich is because guys like me made him rich. Excuse me? Like, yeah, I made him rich. What were you doing? Selling software licenses to businesses that had like 600 Microsoft products installed on their machines. And saying, you have to pay Bill for every single one of them. Going out looking for them. Going out actually saying this. So if I actually find out from someone who works in your company that you've got unlicensed Microsoft software on your systems, it's like, we will come and fucking get you. Like, we're desperate to sue people. It's like, we are the sue kings. It's like, if we find your stuff unlicensed, you breach a contract with us, we can sue you. And they'd taken like British Telecom to the cleaners once. They only had to take one corporation to the cleaners for unlicensed software, and all of a sudden everyone was taking notice of you. So you could, the reason why he became rich was because of fucking software cops like myself and certain ones of my colleagues. Where all we had to do for a long time was pick up the phone and say, oh, it says I've got down in my record here that you bought 6 new computers last month. It's like, have you installed any software on them? And they'd say, oh yeah, we're meaning to put on an order for you for all the software. So they just send you then a purchase order for a license for all those of Bill's products at full price. And it's like, oh shit, all right, we can make money here, never having to send anyone a box. It's like, what a wonderful way of doing business. It's just money. We just put a computerized order on Microsoft system and take money from them, and we get like 20% margin. And it's like, oh, fuck me. It's like, yeah, we're printing money for Bill Gates. We're going out and finding business for him. Later, they came up with better systems for actually automating it and removing my good self out of the picture. They started to have it as to where this, oh, well, you know it. Now it's not so easy to get away with things like that. They sussed it out, how they could use how they could register the software to things like processors and things like that. Once they worked out that they could log where the software went, they made it so no one could escape from paying them. There was openings in the world to go into business actually for yourself, thugging for Microsoft. Something I set about doing once, but a lad was going to do it where he backed out of it. And that was to say, let's just be Microsoft thugs. And you're like, what? It's like, yeah, it's like we can set ourselves up in business and start sending letters to companies as to say, look, Microsoft will sue your ass if you've got any anything dodgy about your system. And it's like offer services to like audit and then sell the product in. It's like, just go out and get it. You could just go out and get it. And if people have no reason to knock you back because in business, it's a job. It's like, I don't like this guy. It's a job. So you go in and it's a matter of the IT guy knows that he's on the hook if no action's taken, and his company directors and purchasers know they have to buy this product. That was a thing, you know, just going out and thugging it. I didn't do it, right? Because my mate said, no, he couldn't handle the fact that he'd be out on a limb, and he couldn't live without the regular wage. He wasn't willing to take a chance. But he told one of his mates on his team all about it, and he immediately did it. He did it. He gave what was my idea to another guy, and he just did it straight away. And then when it dried up, he got out of it. Now what does he do? High performance cars. Oh, that's a good job. I say this like I'm from a line of business that was cutthroat, and it was professionally cutthroat. Everyone's a cutthroat. It's like, in the end, I could have been taken out of business at any stage for being a cutthroat and ruthless, right? Any stage. But they ended up taking me out with allegations of sexual harassment, allegations of racism, allegations of sexism, and allegations of homophobia. As to any given part of it, they could have thrown me out. They couldn't throw me out as a crook or a criminal, but they could say, you know, ethics-wise, some of the things you do, it's like some of the tactics that you use to get business, it's like just thuggery at one level of the game. And it's like, this is what you trained me to do. Hang on a minute. This is business. You've trained me to be this guy who can just go in as to say, you know, here's my fucking Microsoft sheriff's badge. Empty your fucking pockets. So I could do that all day and all night, all day, every day. And no one say, fuck you, we're not talking to you. Or no one say, because it's like, oh yeah, shit, Bill Gates will sue. Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm a collector for Uncle Bill. You know, the charity guy. The guy who cares about AIDS and vaccines and things like that. Him, yeah. Richest guy in the world now, fucking pay up. And it's like, of this fucking crowd of people, right, who've made themselves, put themselves in the world as these sorts of leadership. This is the thing, leadership. They put themselves up as a potential leadership, and they'd be ineffectual people grifting, not really understanding a great deal about what the world is, right? And it's like, how many of them are like corporate attack dog fucking henchmen? How many of them are actually, you know, it's a matter of, it's like, you know, you watch that Wolf of Wall Street thing, that Jordan Belfort, and you watch and you see how far he got away with it. It's like, the reason he came down is because his crooks were all in the same firm. So he had a firm of crooks. It's like, but one man band, earlier in that movie, the guy he met, the one man band who was playing the fucking game, the Matthew McConaughey character who was like, on about, I'm going to go and jack off in a minute, I'm going to take some coke. And he'd be a fucking trader. selling investment opportunities to rich people all day. And that'd be his job. And he's like, why is he that? Well, he's got to be like that all day. Insane. But a dog of fucking war. It's like, oh, you lose. Thank you. I get paid, get paid, get paid. You start playing that game of getting paid, it doesn't matter if you're on millions or it doesn't matter if you're on thousands. If you start to play that game and get paid, it's like you work out what the world is, you work out how business works. And then it's like you'll see how these fucking amateurs, as to where when that kind of thing hits them, they're like, what the fuck? Flummoxed. Like reverting to little fucking children. And it's like, away them. All of them who've come actually through. As to, it's like, what have you done? What have you about? Where are your talents? What have you been recognised as? Well, what have you done? And it's like, I've been sat on my ass for a good decade now, but I haven't always been. It's like, have I learned a thing or two in my apprenticeship about dealing with strangers? It's like, what are you best at, John? And it's strangers. Excuse me? Yeah, strangers. I can talk to strangers. A good 30 year of it. So you look at these fucking guys, they're on the grift, they're looking to earn, and they're playing the game that they can play, and it's one of the sort of emotionally manipulative fucking storyteller who's got an axe to grind. And it's like, you got a shit axe. So do you want a real axe to grind? I'll give you a fucking real axe to grind. It's like, I'll give you something to cry about. Say, while you were fucking sleeping, right, you had time, right, to, if you were serious about what you took on in the first instance, as to say, we need to do something about these fucking crazy people, instead of just reacting to them and looking to earn off your reactions to them. I think from something like 2014, 2013 onwards, what should have really happened, right, is that you fucking nutcases of the alt-right, you should have joined the old left. What? Yes. You shouldn't have fucking signed up with these right-wing guys like your Gavin McKinseys and your even your Milos, right? You shouldn't have signed up with them. You shouldn't have put your faith in them. Why? And it's because they're all right. What do you mean they're all right? It's like they've got free speech, right? Because they've got fuck off money. What's fuck off money, John? It's the sort of money as to where you don't really have to work again. Fuck off money. As to where you could have not a millionaire lifestyle, but you not have to go to work and earn with the money you've got. It's like they've got fuck off money. It's like when they've got fuck off money where they know they've got enough in property as to where when they've been at the top they can downsize and fucking nest egg it, and if they've been clever and they've made themselves, there's a few nice incomes you can quite easily settle for yourself using if you've had money, right, savvy in all these new marketplaces. So it's like these guys have got freedom of speech because they've got fuck off money. Fuck off money or fuck off muscle. Two things. Or, and, either, or. Whereas I've got freedom of thought and speech, because there's nothing left of any real meaning to take away from me. So everything's gone. I've lost it all. And I've hit the absolute financial, career and, you know, professional bottom, and there I've stayed. And it'd be a matter of, you think, there's people in the world who just like go to work and the job's like just to throw something in a van and take it somewhere and sign the paperwork, and so you could do that, couldn't they? And they get me CV, and because I won't lie on a CV, I'll put a real CV out, because if you don't, the whole operations are acting to bad faith, and you're in essence, you've planned a destruction before you fucking joined. So you don't lie in your CV. That'd be the founding truth of the relationship between you and your employers. And from there, it can go either way, can't it? It can stay like that, or it can become a bit shifty. But get off on the right foot. So I'm sat there opposite some guy, right? And it's like, this guy be the boss of a transport business, and I be, in his own way, he be an absolute master of his fucking craft. But his craft, right, is telling people to fucking take things to places. Planning. Picking up a phone, answering a query as to where all this guy actually does is handle other people's goods. And he's the high and mighty master of all his surveys. And in that place, he is the king. So you sit opposite him and he reads your CV. What are you doing here? Like, well, you know, things have taken a turn for the worse, haven't they? It's a matter of, you bet your ass they have. And the standard excuse I get from employers is, as soon as you got your feet on the ground, you be out of here. You're not worth the risk. Like, what? Right, and this is the thing. Could it be said that they're wrong? No, they're absolutely right. They get it. Everyone who ever has sort of whatever, or for years, me just trying to get back to be working, to be useful. Every single one of them has knocked me back for that reason. You're a bad risk. Why? So, well, you've got a massive upside according to this. And talking to you, you certainly can handle yourself, and you're an intelligent fella. And it seems like you might have read a book or two. You know, they like that, don't they? Well read, they say. When you're intelligent and you can use language effectively, they say you're well read, as if you've cribbed all the best lines. That is ignorant, isn't it? Well read. We do, all of us, crib the best lines, but well read, cheeky cunt. You might have just kept good company. But it's a funny old thing, by way of knockback, as to where I've had a whole sort of almost movement of the right on the internet, as to where it's like, you ain't got no one, you ain't got anyone with my experience on your side right now. So the nearest you've got or had to someone who knew something of business was like Stefan Molyneux, and he were a flake. Got it, but you could see it stressing him out talking to him. Just him talking about it when he used to run a business, because he'd talk about it. It's like a 24-hour fucking mental thing going on for him. And it's like, yeah, there are those who can handle that. And that's what they do. It's like, can I handle an occupation that's a 24-hour constancy? Yeah. Yeah. But I have to enjoy what I'm doing. If it's a 24-hour constancy that's a nightmare, that's hell. Well, you'd be surprised at what you can enjoy when you start winning. You see it in exactly as to where I used to sit around with guys who were con men, salesmen, who were in essence, they were selling something tangible, reasonable, but they had to do a big concept sell to create the marketplace to sell it in, like fear, yeah? And it's like, we sit around laughing our asses off at the tactics and the fucking stories to tell and the anecdotes of what actually works to fuck with someone to make them so afraid that they buy. And it's like, there's a whole culture of business of that. As to what you've got is, right, you've got it where corporations set up like satellite offices. In the case of company I work for, Haywood. It's like, they call it around here, what do they call it? Monkey Town. It's like, what's it known for? Young women pushing prams. Excuse me? Yeah, that's like been the standing joke for about 40, 50 years. You go, Haywood? You from Haywood? Oh, hello. And I had a guy once say to me, it's like, I'm moving out of Rochdale. Why? He says, it's become too much like Haywood. So it's like, when you open a business there, it's like, and you basically, the best you'll get from that pool at what you're looking to pay is Jack the Lad, right? Hey presto, Jack the Lad arrives. So Jack the Lad turns up, and Jack the Lad fucking knows about local fucking things go on, knows about local muscle, knows about local criminals, knows about local heavies, comes and looks at your place and immediately sees that there's the scope there for an inside job, and he can actually do it because his guys are local. And you get a place like that as to where it starts to draw staff in from as far away as places like fucking Lancaster and Preston who work there, and Leeds, Sheffield. People driving there all the way from Sheffield to be away. So you come work in fucking Haywood. It's a fucking dangerous dump place. Even I know it. It's like, I'm from the town next to it, and I'm like, yeah, you don't want to be going out about there. So it's like all these fucking student type people, well-to-do, half, went to university, get signed up as graduates to work for the same firm, ends up sat opposite Jack the Lad. So you've got a coming together of the criminal and the graduate. And when the criminal and the graduate meet, it's like the criminal is more adept at the games that you're trying to play when you're looking to sell things to people in the business. Business, nobody has to like each other, it just has to meet a need. So it's a separate world, kind of compartmentalised. I don't think it really is, but someone always ends up paying. A real person always ends up paying. That compartmentalised, thinking of it as another world, right? That's what, in the end, I think that's what's done me kind of moral, psychological damage. That that you're not two people. You're not that guy at work. And you're not that guy who's in the pub. You're always both all the time. And it's like you pretending or trying not to be is why things are vulnerable. Things might just break down. It's like because you are a completely ego-driven machine. And it's like, and you can be taken out. Was taken out. And they don't fire your ass, they force you out the door by poisoning the, well, poisoning the atmosphere, poisoning the history, retconning your achievements, deciding you something. Turned out he were like, what? Excuse me? It's like, I'll never go through that again for what they're willing to pay. There's likely I was going to say, you can't be two separate things. You can only be yourself. And if you attempt to be one thing and project something else, it's like it's disingenuous, almost sinful. It's like you ought yourself to be true to yourself. And if someone comes along, right, who threatens one of the pillars of your existence, one of your pillars of the earth, one of your institutions, and says, you don't understand this at all, and you're actually being played like a fiddle by someone who's smarter than you. I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about whoever's fed them that bullshit that they're operating with by way of north of England. It's like, who sold you that sack of shit? And then you got issues with a guy at Robinson who I fucking love to talk to, because the thing about I've been around, I'm older than him, and I've been following this for a long time. It's like, first I ever heard him speak, he was invited on the radio to talk to George Galloway, who just rinsed him, just dismissed him, called him a knuckle dragger. Right? And do you know why? Because he was a knuckle dragger. It's like, he's radicalised, right, Tommy Robinson, in certain beliefs and understandings. But his radicalisation is actually, in my estimation, the 2001 version of social justice. He's been radicalised by the mainstream media post 9/11. He takes that sentiment of Islam, the way that it was weaponised then by the media to get the people to support the Iraq war. And it's like, Tommy Robinson was radicalised by that. So it's like, Tommy Robinson was radicalised by the BBC, the ITV, the Sun, the Mirror, the Guardian. In fact, the Guardian were a different side then. They were the different, the sides were switched. If you notice, just a side thing, they've got rid of that salty cracker came out with a belter, didn't he? That who did that information czar look like? And it was killing me. And he got it. Quentin Tarantino. She looked like Quentin Tarantino, didn't she? And she got this job, didn't she, as like the information czar. And she's this horrible propagandist herself. And she then got walloped, and she'd be thinking up front, well, as soon as they all come at me, it'll prove that they're sexist, racist, homophobic, and I'll win. It's like, we've got the nutters, they're that bad. Now, they're that bad that they think they can win a kind of psychological victory. They'll let you go sizzle, because it appears that that happens to them. I'll hit them. Them coming at me will prove to the world just how sexist they are because I'm a woman. You think that's going to work? It might have worked for Hillary Clinton 20 years ago. It's not going to work for you now. So everyone laughed at her for a few days, and it's gone, it's finished. It's the plan in its instance, they've re-looked at it again, and they've hired themselves this liability, and they've looked at what they've tried to do, and it's a matter of, this is just bullshit we're trying to do here. What? Someone with half a bit of sense, it's like, you try and push this, it's like, what's going to happen is, it's like, this is going to go to the Supreme Court. It's like, when states will fight against this, it's like, you've got no right to set up a fucking disinformation fucking agency. You've got no right for that. This is America. First Amendment thing. It's like that it wouldn't stand up in any courtroom. So they'd take it to court, the states take it to court. And then if they didn't get the result they wanted there, they'd take it to the Supreme Court. And it's like, yes, but we've discredited the Supreme Court. It's like, you're not listening. It's like, that's telegraphed as being a fucking waste of time smokescreen that you shouldn't have done in the first place, because anyone with half a brain, not a constitutional lawyer like Obama, right? If Obama was really who the crack on he is, he'd have been straight away as to say, throw that away, you can't do that. It's like, it's telegraphed. You're just looking to waste a lot of people's time and money. It's like, they ain't going to buy that, get rid of it now. But, you know, maybe that's what happened. But then, right, very, very quickly, they reorganise the situation and they bring back a guy to run it. And the guy's called like Michael Chertoff. I'm like, fuck me, what? Michael Chertoff. And you're like, well, ain't that a turn up? See, you should have all made friends with George Galloway. The old idea. You guys who went out looking for these alternative political figures, you should have gone looking for George Galloway. It's like, why, John? It's like, strangely, right? His audience tend to be grassroots political activists. What? It's like, yeah, you know, people who go up against the council. It's people who actually take a stand where they live and things like that. Know what's going on better than you do. Are engaged on a personal level. It's like a lot of them follow him. That's who his people are. That's who his political activists are. And you get to talking to those people, and they ain't got a fucking clue who Saigon is, Millennial Wells is. They don't know who the fuck any of you are. Paul Joseph Watson. They don't know who the fuck any of you are. And I think probably just about everyone on whatever their specialty is could just tear a fucking strip off you as to what you think the world is. It's like working class activists, right? We are not allowed to join that. What is a boys club on YouTube? Not allowed. It's like there's brilliant people. There's brilliant people get involved going up against the council. Going up against, you know, local. Let's fight against the Clean Air Zone, Wallop. I think around here as to where the biggest coming together of sort of almost like every loose vote in Greater Manchester all found itself on the Facebook in that object to the Clean Air Zone sort of campaign, and it's like 90,000. And the people who put the group up, they were like, why is it stopped at 90,000? Why aren't we getting any more? And I'm like, well, that's everybody. What? So yeah, that's everybody within your catchment area who's politically active, who actually gives a fuck. Who isn't already signed up to this, well, climate change, we're all going to have to make sacrifices. Fucking nonsense. I haven't already signed up for it. I haven't already been like propagandised out their asses, in the workplaces, in the schools, everywhere, every day of their fucking lives. It's like they're signed up for it. They believe in invisible enemies. They're afraid of invisible killers. You can hurt them with words. They are the least prepared people for push coming to shove, and just a big blob of fucking cowards who seem to think they're being looked after by, I don't know, wiser men than us, who want to save the planet. It's become that dumb. And they get to 90,000 people in Greater Manchester and say, this is our group. and all nature of people throwing down as to say a fuck no with you, taxing every small business in the in Greater Manchester in like 500 square mile to do business in their own vehicle, charging them a daily tariff for driving their own vehicles. And it'd be, have you seen our electric bills? Have you seen this pandemic we've had? And it's like, now's the time. And it's like Andy Burnham, member of the World Economic Forum, bringing in sweeping piss-take laws, sweeping changes in legislation, massive sell-offs, huge public investments. It's like, they stopped that and you turned on it and now they're shitting the pants. And it's like, why? Because it's like, think of it this way, as something that's, you know, tangible. You, someone who's like, oh, we're like Labour Party do-gooder. Oh, the world. And ring fencing the funding for the Pride Parade and all that sort of stuff, those people. They look at that list of 90,000 subscribers, right, on that Fight the Cars. And they're all rough fuckers like me. By and large, women that won't back down or aren't members of the fucking cult. And guys like me who are rough cunts who'll say, get blood from a stone, cunt. It's like, play games with me and I'll just... I know I can't do anything sort of criminal damage-wise to you for doing what you're doing. I know I can't damage your property. I know I can't harm your staff. But at any time I get the chance to have access to the people enforcing this for you, I'm going to do my very best to attempt to demoralise them and ruin their day. What? And it'd be a matter of that. It's like, you're not going to even be able to get people to do this job. We're going to fucking spit on them. What? I don't mean literally spit on them. I mean, those who look to enforce this, it's like, you better get people from another country to come after us, because if you send, you know, local fucking... if you snatch somebody off universal credit at age 21 and put them in a call centre dealing with complaints about people who are being charged a big bill from nowhere, it's like, how do you think their mental health's going to suffer in that fucking workplace? It's like, they've looked at it and they've gone, oh my God, these people at work. And it'd be a matter of, you look at that list of people and those motherfuckers are so dumb, right? That list of 90,000, I'd say, 250 of them are real legitimate threats to those people intellectually, and another 1,000 of them would represent a muscle problem. As to attempt to deal with them, you'd need all the coppers on duty in fucking Greater Manchester, and it'd be, oh fuck. And it'd be like, what do these people care about, really? It's like this fucking audience that, you know, this thing that no one's able to fucking harness, and that be the floating political, someone who's fucking angry and engaged, to get them all on side. What's the unifying thing? So, well, local government. It's like, you don't need, right? You don't need a government, a central government to pull off your Green New Deal, Green Agenda, Great Reset. You just need all the councils. And it's done. You need all the councils. Took your eye off what you that's been going on in your own places, your own towns, and the local decisions, and gone, and then got to talking about the World Economic Forum and like the Conservative Party and winning the general election. It's a matter of, you guys are fucking dumb. Anyone who looks at that and thinks it's like, for the genuine fucking tyrannical system of what we've got and what we're going to see more of, for it, right, you need it's dependent on Labour out of power. There was a design, you see, right? A lot of you guys don't fucking get this, and something I've been saying for a good long while, and recently, right, Wayne told me. He says, have you ever read The Fourth Protocol? I'm like, no, but I've seen the movie and I didn't mind it. He's like, you want to read the book? It's nothing like the movie. It's like, only one element of it is like the movie, and it's like, read the letters from the British intelligence expert to the Kremlin in The Fourth Protocol, and this is like 1982. And there's a long sort of essay about what's going on in the left in the UK. And I'd never heard it before. And it's a matter of, oh fuck, this is accurate. So this is accurate. This is accurate. This is what's happened. But he misses things. Like, what? Yeah, the Soviet spy reporting on the state of affairs in the UK with what's going on with the, in essence, hard leftist, pro-communist forces being well underway with a plan to take over the country, but trying to timing it and having it culminate in a victory that would give them the opportunity to then change the law in such a way as to where they'd never be out of power. Right? And they actually did it. But they got voted out. Iraq war nonsense, that ridiculous blindfold financial crash of 2008, that only people who were, I don't know, fucking, if every day if you drove past boarded houses on your way to work, you might have got an early heads up on what was going to happen in those financial markets. And I read about it in I think, The Guardian. First, subprime meltdown is what they were saying was going to happen. And as soon as the story of it hit the world, it had happened, it was underway. And once they were looking for the pattern of it, they couldn't help but find it. And then they're like, oh my God, yeah, we've turned a blind eye to something, and it's been a matter of, well, you haven't really turned a blind eye to it. It's like everyone who made money about it, everybody who made money out of it knew that they were playing it. You decided not to see it. It's like you got an economy, certainly in the States and in the UK, that's forcing house prices up and giving loads and loads of credits for people at the same time as outsourcing their jobs on a large scale. It's like you're tying people up for 25-year mortgages, and you're also backing the same forces that are outsourcing their work to China. It's like, how many markets do you want to make money in? And that came unstuck for them. That worsened it. Redundancies and things like that added to the pattern of foreclosure and default. It's like, this would have worked if you hadn't have outsourced millions of jobs. This would have worked what you were doing. It's like this perfected credit system that you thought you had because you cross-insured everything. It would have worked if you hadn't have outsourced millions of jobs at the same time. So it's like, does the right arm know what the left arm's doing? And it's like, yeah, of course they do. They're just wanting to make money on all markets and exploit all the markets at once. Fuck the people. It's their problem. It's only going to affect the people it affects. And if they were smart like me and you, they'd have edged against it. And that also kind of be true too. But it's like, because I worked for a firm at a time that was seen as being valuable. I went working for the firm I worked for. I always at it to us. It's like, this firm will never go out of business. Why? Because it consistently makes money. And it's like, anyone who ever bought it out has got no interest in altering it in any way, shape or form, because doing what it does now, it makes a lot of money. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like this guy off the internet who reads forums and stuff like that. Before things like Facebook and stuff. That was new around then. I wasn't on that. I didn't go on Facebook till about a couple of years later. But I was someone who watched videos and read forums and read the news and read reports. And because we're smokers, I'm a smoker, so I get to stand outside with smokers. So every now and then I get to speak to directors, bosses, all the time, because they are smokers too. They're generally older generation than me, people who were still smoking at the time. So I get to talk to the boss of the place. And I spoke to the boss at Camden. He was like a operations director. That's probably the top guy who works full time for any organisation. He's the guy every line manager would report to. So in an ideal world, he only deals with spreadsheets and 4 or 5 people. Right enough bloke, because he obviously, seeing it from the top, he understands the business dynamic is based upon my ability to get out of fucking bed, and without drivers there's no business, and it's the actual drivers that are worth something, not the business. So it's a cooperative business, big time. Without the moving parts, it's nothing. So it's like, you can talk to him. And I says to him, I'm like, so you guys have recently been bought out, haven't you? Oh yeah, you've been told. Oh yeah, it's like, you do good training this place. You've told us all about the firm. We've learned all sorts. And, you know, in induction, week-long training for them, residential and all kinds of shit. Good stuff. Their training program was fucking brilliant. It's like, when I was thinking about getting into that job, and my uncle who got in contact with me and says, go and work for them. Specifically, go and work for them. And it's like, why work for them? He says, well, they don't pay the best money, but they will train you. And it's like, well, what do you mean train? You need training for this job. He said, oh yeah, you could do with it. You could do with some training. And it's like, they actually train people pretty well to do the job, so go and work for them specifically. It's like, they're the best of a bad bunch. They're the ones to go and work for. It's like, they won't send you out into the world unprepared, because they like to be a professional firm. Not so much but they don't like fuck ups, cost some money. They like making money a lot, right? So they taught us like the optimal ways of planning that job to make money. I know how they used to plan and why they used to make so much money. I know the rules of their planning game, because you could question the planning if it went against the basic rules of the theories and stuff. And they'd have to give you a good reason why, and it might be sometimes, well, the job's demanding it. Ah, fair enough. Your nearest bloke, rough with smooth, they'd have to give you a reason why they were going against what was like the Bible way of doing it and stuff. So I'm talking to a big guy, and I understand. I'm so well trained, right? I understand their operation, because they taught me in training what they were, what they did, what was their sites, how this business made so much money. They taught us. And they'd been bought by Lloyd's Bank. But to tell you an interesting one as to that firm I worked for, right? They were called Camden Corporate Fleet Services, right? And they're barely any mention on the internet because of when they existed. But they were the like, for a very long time, the best company you could hire to ask one guy to move one car from one place. Sometimes it's like, you might have it where a fleet of vans needs to be delivered. Yeah, and it's like, how do you get a fleet of vans delivered? It's a lot cheaper to send 40 drivers to go and move them than it is to send 20 trucks to move them, to do the same. So sometimes the best way of doing that job is to send a guy who can drive to shift it from one place to another. And it's like, there's no end to how useful that is. It's like human beings have only got one arse and can only operate one vehicle at once. So what they had a lease hire firm. What they used to do is they used to be responsible for a few different jobs to make a business, and one of them they had contracts with car manufacturers to hold all of their stock. So you find these places like a car park with 20,000 cars on it. You're like, whoa, cars as far as the eye can see, like outrageous numbers of cars, like vans, and then it'd be parts of Corby down in Nottinghamshire. Half the town be a car park, just behind a facade of a fence from a drone or a Google Earth. It's like, there's certain places that are just car parks. And it's like, the company I work for, they used to do lease hire to things like hire firms, businesses that had lease vehicle contracts. So it's just all leasing. It's all, they're leasing vehicles out. They're also storing vehicles for who the customers are. So it's like, for storing a vehicle, they were saying, what's the score with this business they've got? Why is this place full of fucking Alfa Romeos? It's like, well, these are all they used and new Alfa Romeos in the country right now. These are all of them. And it's like, and there was a guy who worked at the yard, and it's like, yeah, who are you? And this guy, it's like, why are there so many Alphas? And this guy stepped in. It's like, well, he's like, I am the Alfa Romeo quality manager. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, these are all the Alfa Romeos we've got available for the dealer network in this country. It's like, these are like ex-demonstrators and some new ones, and, you know, basically a pool of them as to where, out of harm's way. I'm like, how's that a business? It's like, well, if the list of all these vehicles is out at the dealership, if someone comes along and wants to buy an Alfa Romeo and it's on the list, it's like, it's here. We just put an order in to your office for someone to valet this vehicle and for one of you guys to drive it to the dealership. It's like, your customers are, the firm I work for's customers were on site. It's like, we hold your stock, then we remarket it, and then we redeliver it for you. So they had huge compounds doing all these micro deals, like thousands of cars moving through for either storage or deals to lease the stuff, as to where they were then themselves into this stock and trading this stock to then lease it out. So they were doing deals themselves with contract leasing. So there was always enough work for them to get me from the Midlands back up north. The system was, every day there was about 100 new vehicles went out of the yards in Corby, all going in different directions, and there'd always be one that'd get me home, always. When there's been an emergency, when things have got fucked up, it's a matter of, right, we'll wait until the car comes in for you. You might be waiting 4 hours, and you sat there, you're like, fucking 4 hours. 4 hours waiting time. You get about 60 quid for being sat there for 4 hours waiting. But they would always find you one. So it's like they had this mechanism for finding their own work, but then they used to also sell our services out to everyone else as well. And because we had our own work to generate a flow in one direction, which was all paid work, guaranteed, part of the firm, we used other people's work to get us to get us back to our bases, to do our homework again. So it's like, as a business, it's like theirs was unique and fucking genius. And it's like you come to understand it. So this is how you could make a lot of money if you had a very large compound with a fence that was secure. It's like a fundamental of how this company makes money is that they charge, like, at the time it was about just £5 a day to park. Fundamentally, in that contract they had with all these suppliers, that's what they were charging. They were charging £5 a day for parking, and that'd be the core of the business. That endless drip of, well, there's a vehicle there, it's doing nothing, we don't do anything to it until we get a job to move it, and then we valet it and we get paid for that, and we deliver it and we get paid for that. And that's how we do business. And it's like, I'm thinking, it's like, this is a fucking brilliant business. It is. It's genius. It's like, you can do it. You can make more money out of it than anyone, and you can do it cheaper. And if you want to, you can show your ass and just do the job cheaper, because it's all your work. It's all your stuff. These are great big fucking import hubs for vehicles. It's like there's transporters in and out of these places every day. It's like Car City. It's like nothing will ever go wrong with this. Right? Firm I work for had been purchased by Lloyds Bank, and it's like they've just bought the firm. They're not going to fuck with us. They're not going to do anything, right? And this company's rich. We've actually got on the books like 6 million, and it's like straight firm investment money, cash. It's like we've got cash reserves of like 6 million, and it's like we turn over X amount. So what you see, you've got money to invest. It's like, yep. And so what's going to happen? It's like, first of all, we're all getting new uniforms. We're rebranding the firm, and we're starting some call centre contracts with companies in India to start robocalling our customers to try and get them to, oh, don't do that. So obviously got talking about that being, sounds good in principle, but have you ever had a fucking robocall? Nobody likes it. It's like, and fuck you, bye. It's like you fuck with someone. It's like you're middle of having a shit and your phone rings and you're like, oh, it could be important, and then you fucking you unplug yourself and then you fucking sit round and you pick the phone up and it's a robocall trying to remind you that your fucking car's due to be fucking returned, and it's like, whoa, no, fuck off now. But yeah, got into that. We'll put it to him. It's like, if what I know to be true, right, happens the way that I think it's probably going to, because at that time it was like, I know the government are continuing to say that they're predicting like 2% growth in the economy in the year 2008, 2009. The government are saying, they're making, the Chancellor is making predictions as to, this is going to be an easy year, this is going to be a perpetual growth. And he be treating reports that there's some problems in the system that we've just ignored, and now we're going to have to look at, and now we have to look at it, it's going to cause panic, right? They just treated it like it were a conspiracy theory and told the people who were peddling it that they were just internet idiots, people, rumours on the internet. And it was very difficult to fucking hedge against it when you knew it were coming. Do you know what I did to hedge against it? Sold my house. That was actually the wrong move. The wrong move, because what's happened in the end is base rates have been reduced to fucking zero. It's like I'd have practically owned the house for free. I'd have been, I'd have owned it easily outright by now if I hadn't have gone the other way, because I were expecting that there'd be a devaluation and a financial crash, and but no, it's like the banks weren't just bailed out; every mortgage holder was as well. and has been getting bailed out every year since. They didn't just bail the banks out, they bailed out the mortgage holders as well. So your interest rates are set an artificially low rate. There's ways you can look at the economy to say, regardless of what the economy is doing, they can get away with it because the way it is now is paying everybody in the country who has got a mortgage a bribe with low base rates, low interest rates. So they just held low interest rates for fucking years as a response to it. So the actual financial hit of that churn, right, what it did, I'll tell you what it did. It forced the banks to start looking for money, start calling in medium-sized debt, and also to start selling assets as quickly as they possibly could. They basically, with the leverage they had, what they owned, because those banks had been expanding into business all over the place. What are Lloyd's Bank doing in the car storage and delivery business? As an investment, what are they doing in that business? So the business I work for, as profitable as it was actually worth more as property than it was as a business. So for quick cash, they just sold the yards. Finished, gone, there you go, off the books. What? Yeah, it's like they cut the losses and just pulled the plug on the business. They sold, right? They basically surrendered the business and sold it out to their main competitor. It was actually a smaller company. But when that deal's been done with whoever their bankers are, whoever their management are, they've said, what? It pretty much just buy your business, just take it. Yeah. Sold. Gone. It's like done. Business over. Finished. And it's like, who used to own the business I work for? It was like a company called Inchcape. It's like, who are they? It's like, oh, well, we don't see their name on garages around here, but they're a huge dealer network of Audis and VWs. They're a big deal. They do all sorts of stuff. It's like, why did they buy the business? Well, because as a business, with its function, it was just money. Nobody fucked with it because it just made money. It's like it was a good business, and you could also work it into your own business as well. So it was beautiful for a big dealer network to have owned it. And it's like, well, who owned it before then? And it was like, oh, National Car Rental. It's like, oh, fucking hell, Americans. So it's like the firm I work for had changed hands and changed owners loads of times. It's like, originally they were called Eurofleet. And there were some guys who worked there and had worked there that long. Every now and then when they wanted to like remind the bosses how long they'd be there, they'd put a fucking old, faded old work gear, Eurofleet. And it's like, this business has made fucking money and never had to make a single person fucking redundant in all its time it's been in operation, and then suddenly gone. Because its assets to sell to a competitor are worth more than the business. Right? So as business goes, it's like I'm on the other side of this. I've been previously to that career, because I enjoyed that. That's what I was into. I like that more than cutthroat. And I'm weighing it up as to it's like someone like me did that and thought it was clever. A guy like me, as someone who's in the same circles as me, probably of the same generation, of the same mindset, inclination as to where, well, if we need to cut our losses here, we can just cut this company adrift. and just sell them out. And what about the staff? Well, they had a thing actually, a key thing, as to a lot of their key members of staff, really key members of staff, were getting a bit elderly. You know, guys like Alex Ferguson would be hard to replace. They were getting a bit elderly. So it's like there were quite a few of the senior staff ready for retiring anyway. So in the end, they just early retired a lot of the big fellas who worked there. A lot of the important figures. But then it became, right, well, a university of knowledge by way of planning got broken up. It's like the planning offices in that place is booking offices. When you went in there, they were as busy as any office you ever saw. And it's like, well, we've got 28 transporters on the road and 144 drivers. And we're supporting all of them, and we're planning for all of them, and we're keeping track of all of them. And there's 16 of us or something work there. And you see it, everyone who works there, it's like, these guys make money doing that. Getting it planned, getting it thrown out, getting it earned. It's like it's like that they are the sales force, like I once was. And you get in that room and you get it as to where the people you're dealing with are fucking hyper busy. It's like the place is a fucking madhouse. And it's like that level of skill, because the thing they had about them was that someone would shout out, where the fucking hell's... They had this nerve centre between them where it could just be off the phone and it's a shout out, it's to say, has anyone got no one's a driver anywhere near? Just and then it'd be a matter of phone call, bang, bang, bang. On your way home, you couldn't just do us a favour and pick up some paperwork, could you? We'll put it on as a job. Yeah, okay, fine, boom. They had guys all over the country like that, and if you knew where they all were, they were all available. It's like nerve centres. Gone. All skills. Scattered at four winds. All experience. Abandoned. It's like... Have you ever had it where, right? Basically, it's like the wolf caught you and you ran up against the witch and you were just walloped, boom, and you just ran for your life and escaped. And you were sharp enough to survive and then find somewhere where they'd never catch you again, never find you again. And then they catch up with you there as well. And what did they do this time? Oh, they sold out the firm from under you to get some fast money because they were facing bank runs and ended up like fucking nationalised. Fucking NatWest Bank. Lloyds? Yeah, Lloyds. Lloyds, who are. Like, you fucking twat. You end up nationalised. But first, you put me out of work. Like, bang. And then first you cut off everyone's credit, so we ran short of work because no one was renewing vehicle leases because of all the uncertainty in the cash fluid marketplace. They didn't know where they were going to be next year, so they weren't signing no fucking contracts. So the work died down. And then when the work died down, you panicked and fucking just sold it off. Like, you sons of bitches. Like, they thought the world was going to end, the bankers, in 2009. And they did desperate fucked things. And the desperate fucked things that the banks did in fire sales, in 2009 and what they did to jobs, no one's ever fucking addressed it. No one's ever addressed it. So that financial crash of 2009 was big in who it wiped out. And it was when the banking sector fucking has problems, it will squeeze everyone it's got a chance to. And when it's in a situation where it's been caught wrong as to actually starting to commercially invest in properties and businesses to just make money for its shareholders, the banks then become a management thing, like the hedge fund. When the bank becomes the hedge fund, best thing, the firm I work for, the best thing that could have ever happened to it is when it was bought by a bank. If it had been bought by a hedge fund instead, it'd been fine. I'd still been working there. I'd probably moved to Midlands to be a better driver and get better work, or even be running the fucking firm. Move down there and take over as a driver manager. And it'd be like 70 grand a year. I'd have stayed working there for good. I would have stayed working there right till the end in getting there and understanding this place is so well thought out, so well planned, so well executed, so well organised that there's no way it can't make tons of fucking money. Go. It's like half of you out there who will spew an opinion into the world, right? And say something has to be done. It's like you don't know the fucking first thing about it. It's like you make the same mistakes, right, as the Labour Party have always made. You make the same mistakes as the Tories have always made, right? You fucking middle class people who think you speak for the working class, and no one does, because everyone wants to just push themselves forward as I speak for Elspeth and think people are all like, no. No, it's like you ain't been through it. It's like you ain't seen shit. It's like you've been through your own version of the churn, but it ain't been anything like the forces that have fucked you. Haven't been anything like as ruthless as the ones who've come after me. It's like you don't know shit about how the real world works. My flaw was not being a big enough dog. If I'd have been as ruthless as others were, I'd have been fine. It's when the ruthless started to be a problem to me. When it got turned on me, I didn't like it. Could be said to be true. When the shit got turned on me, I didn't like it. It was okay for me to be, and it was always okay for me to be vile, a beast in operating in the world on behalf of these people. But when that beast turns on them, I can't deal with it at all. So it's like once they've, in essence, failed to back me up, or in some regards conspired to stab me in the back, my reaction to it's been off. And I'm one of these people, it's like I'm the best teammate you can have until I'm not. And then if you turn on me, I'll destroy your organisation from within. And it's like they get as to when I turn, or that I'm dangerous, I can be like fucking Sparkus. So I can demoralise the people around me and encourage them to take all kinds of action, no problem. I can poison the well. Like, did you turn on me? And then the truth come to it, something like, well, there was this woman you worked with once who started, and she was really impressed with you because you're like a comedy fucking genius, fucking sales superstar. She thought you were the best thing in the world, and she asked you to come out on a date, and you sort of embarrassed her and said, like, not on your Nelly. And she never forgave you. What? And that were you. That's all she wrote. It's like when someone decided they wanted rid of you and started to conspire against you, suddenly they were able to find all kinds of allies who wouldn't mind seeing the back of you either. Not so many, but just enough, maybe 3 or 4. And then between them they start a conspiracy against you. And at the same time, you be someone who, in their own way, can be seen to be, you know, a bit of a piss taker. So you start to make it so that I'm in trouble for all kinds of things where normally it wouldn't be an issue, or it'd just be, everyone would just laugh at the funny joke, and then all of a sudden your joke's not funny anymore and you're in trouble. It's like cancelled, right? This thing, right? I was cancelled in about 2003-ish, 2002, 2003, I got cancelled. And it's like, well, what did it entail in them days? You're just not allowed to work within any organisation that's got any sort of link or, you know, these notions of things like common purpose, this sort of framework of HR and recruitment and stuff like that. It's like, for as long as they've had email and spreadsheets, they've been comparing notes about people in the same way as when you put your fucking CV on the internet, it gets shared with everyone and everyone gets to look at it. And the headhunters look at your CV and they look at you before they even have got a fucking job in mind, right? In those, since that date has become liberalised, if you like, and massively shared, right? My black marks from history have been laid bare in the data. It's like details of sort of old disciplinary sort of cases made against my good self have continued into the world, and they'd be like, oh, no, this guy, no, he's on the old list, he's on the blacklist. It's like, we don't have him in. Why? It's like, dangerous person. What? Well, yeah. It's like they haven't worked. The thing is, right, and that when I said that, it's like the world of business doesn't know how to manage me, so it can't make money out of me. It knows I'm worth a lot of money, but it doesn't know how to mine it. And I don't know how to mine it either. So it's like me and the corporate machine can't coexist. Its component parts are too weak to handle me, if they feel they need to. Which in my estimation, they don't. I'm a good employee. I'm like an orderly, let's get the job done, let's play it straight, take pride in what you do, regardless of how mundane it might be. Make a good impression. understand that if the business goes down, you go down. So do your best to keep everything afloat. Do all the little things. I'm like that. I'm really conscientious. But it's like, yeah, but we can't control you. And if we crack the whip, you're going to turn around and say, the fuck do you think you're talking to? Yeah, I am. It's like setting me wares now when someone throws down the race ace or else cracks the dominatrix whip, the eye roll, please, that you get from me. No one's going to ever use that again. And it's like, if you can't handle that, it's finished, isn't it? I'm done. You only need one person in the place to throw that down at you, and then you found out. He's one of them. When the old brainwash talk of, oh, bless her. The old brainwashing talk comes up as to, do you, right? Someone plays that game and I'm like, oh, come on, sir. As to catch it straight away and address it. The way the world's gone, it's like the Matrix, you know, where anyone can be an agent. And it's like, if you stand up to that when it gets thrown down at you, as soon as you stand up to it, they knew you. Like, no, this is no good. We can't make this one heal by making him feel sad. And the old games of so old. So to me it's just, oh, this, you're gonna play this, are you? So I can play this too, but if I play this, I ain't gonna have a job in 5 minutes, but I'll play. Would you like to play? It's like, there'll be no way I'll be able to continue to work here because everyone will hate me. It's like, you don't need to sack me. It's like, I'll be gone. But yeah, it's like, if you want to have a mouth off at me, I'll fucking mouth off back at you. And I could say it'd be as a matter of, in this day and age, I'd be probably too easy to provoke. And to be like, excuse me. And it's like, I throw down on people, me, I don't. I throw down, I'm like, what? I don't back down like that. You only have to do that once these days in the workplace, where you go, you rear up, and that'll be your reaction. Gone. You'll have people saying things like, people make observations about me like this. They say, I thought he was going to hit me. Never touched them. But that they thought I might be enough as to say, oh, he makes these people feel uncomfortable. And in the world of work, you're not allowed to have a job. What? See, no one gets paid for that. It's like, you are not an acceptable slave to the minimum wage workforce. You are not an acceptable slave. You are a rejected slave. It's like, you're not a slave. It's like, we can't do that for you. It's like, spat out. The Matrix has spat you out, sir. Good luck to you. You've maybe worked out a thing or two about what it's doing to everyone, but you've decided that you are not going to stand for it. So bye-bye. See how you get on. But it's like, it's like, you ain't got no money. It's like, your reputation's gone. You've no means to go out and earn proper money. And your history means that the drone workforce will see you as being too dangerous for them. Now what are you going to do? And you know, there's no forgive and forget. There's no one to go and crawl back to and say, "Oh, I promise to be good. I'll do my best to keep a lid on me funny looks and me eye rolling and me." Really? I'll do my best to keep a lid on me sarcasm, and I'll try not to ask so many questions, and I'll try not to understand things as well as I do. I'll try not to learn about the place. I'll just be a dick who just does the moving and the driving and the tick the parts. I'll just do that if you want. And they're like, no you won't. It's like as soon as you walk in, you'll stamp down your authority as being the fucking biggest swinging dick in the fucking place, and no one will be able to actually argue with you, because you probably are, but you ain't the boss. I'm like, no, I don't want to be. It's like, yeah, you do. So it's like I cut up rough against the world because the world thinks I want to be in charge. It does. It's the thing that thinks I want to be in charge, and it's like I spent years learning how to do it properly. Be in charge. But you know, I got no authority. I can't make anyone do anything. I ain't got a badge. I haven't got. It's like, you can hire me to work for you, and I'll work for you in good faith, and any agreement we've got will be completely honoured, and the relationship would be absolutely respectful. Right. What good's that? So, well, I won't be in charge, will I? But I'll be an instrument. For hire. And it's like the concept of that just it's like if you're a personnel manager at Iceland, you're not getting that job, are you? Driving that van.